All right. I like to kind of describe the Informacast platform as a series of building blocks, and you address one at a time, and then you kind of combine them to get to where we're going, right? So we're going to talk about that in a couple of different sections. We're going to talk about who we page to, right? We're going to talk about what the messaging is, and then we're going to talk about fun ways to combine those into how we actually use the system, right? So kind of a pyramid, right? So hang tight with me. We'll address kind of each block on its own, and hopefully then by the end you'll see how everything works together. So when you go to the URL, the first thing you'll be presented with is a login screen. This can be set up with um, single sign-on, I believe, if we want to utilize that, or it can be local, however administration wants to accomplish that. Um, and I'm going to try to present this from a campus level, and I will then make specific call outs to district level staff for some things I want them to specifically take note of from a district level supporting all of the campuses. The very first thing that I want to talk about, when you first log in, you're going to get this kind of heads up dashboard. And if you are a district staff member, you will not have a drop down menu here. Your thing right here at the top will say the campus that you're at, right? And so for the purposes of this training, I'm going to kind of stay in K8 Mansfield because that was the first campus that we hit, and it's the furthest along. But in general, you should only see your campus. If you are a district level staff member, you might see global, you might see several campuses. If you are, say, a Houston coordinator, right, you might see all of the Houston campuses. It is important for those staff members to make sure you are working in the campus that you are trying to work in. But for my purposes, I'm gonna take it straight to K8 Mansfield. Unfortunately, I cannot clear these errors, and we are just now starting, so the errors exist until the system is up and going. But what you should see when you log in is a clear dashboard up here. If you do see an error, that might be something worth calling to IT's attention. But Informacast does a great job of telling you that everything's great or hey, there's a problem. For now, we're going to ignore these errors because they're not actually errors. We're just not there yet. And then finally, before we launch into it, Informacast has a very highly indexed user guide. Right. So in addition to this recorded training, if you go here to the question mark and you select user guide, unfortunately, it's going to give me, okay, it did give me a pop-up in the same window. So you should be able to see this. If you just come here to the search bar and type in what you want to be reminded of how to do, you will literally get how to configure this thing, right? So I put in Bell schedule and literally videos, links, everything you need to know. Okay, so it's highly indexed, and they're at your fingertips once you log in. It's a great resource to remember that you have access to. Okay, so we're going to start with recipient groups because it's not going to take that long, because what I want to leave you with here is IT is going to set those up for you. And so you will very rarely have to work within the recipient groups, but I want you to understand how the recipient groups work so that you can make requests if you want a specifically kind of unique recipient group created. Um, and you'll notice that there's a ton of them. We're gonna stay in the device groups at this point because from our perspective, everything is a device group, or everything is a device. So what we'll see, and we're going to have several additional recipient groups already created for you, but down here in recipient groups, we'll be able to see all of the different groups that have been created. For instance, there is an all devices on campus that's very self-explanatory. All of the phones, right? The phones that we are putting in are an extension of this new paging system, right? So kind of different from what you're used to. The phones are endpoints as well. And so where that comes in is we are actually able to broadcast text messages and pictures which will be important in emergency lockdown scenarios, things like that. We can transmit some additional information to teachers as opposed to just audio over speakers. So that's why phones come in. And then we have an all speakers and clocks. If you've been through part of the renovation, you will notice that you have street sign clocks that are going in your hallways. They have the time on either direction, on either side. They will also scroll a message when a message is broadcast if you choose to put text in your message. Okay, so they're kind of dual function. Um, and then as an example, I created a West building group. Um, the way the zones work, and from our understanding, the majority of the campuses exist is one half of the building is kind of one group of kids that may be under one schedule, and the other half of the building is possibly on a different schedule. And your mileage may vary by campus, but it's important to note that we can create these groups by geographical location within the building, as well as user type, things like including the gym and cafeteria or not, this hallway, that hallway. For reference, when I say west side of building, what that group includes is, and it's very hard to see this probably, the west classrooms, both upper and lower, on the map, not age grade. The west hallways, and then the west exterior speakers, right? So when we say west side of the building, that's what we mean. All of the speakers that are on the west side of the building. We'll have similar groups for things like the administrative area, the east side of the building, the gym, things like that. And you will use those groups to put together your messaging. But you will not be responsible for creating those groups. So if you have a group that's created and you need a specific type of group and it's not quite dialed in to what you need, I would say put in a ticket and we'll see if we can create that unique group. I will note that we do have, or have attempted to have, based off of the maps, the SPED classrooms in their own group. And so that will be important for, obviously maybe they don't need every announcement, but they do need the emergency alerts, right? Things like that, right? And so we're trying to keep all of the groups split up into the way you would utilize them from a day-to-day perspective. So those are the groups. And where you will kind of start spending most of your time is here in the notifications, right? So that first building block is who we're paging to, right? And those are the groups. The second building block is what we're doing, right? What message are we sending? And this is kind of where you come in. So you're going to live kind of here in notifications, and within that, you're going to live in an area called message templates. I don't really like the way that's named, but it is basically all of your messages. Okay. So if I click on that, we're going to create some right now. And I want to delete this one because that's my example. So every campus is going to come loaded with a live paging template, right? What you would expect. You pick up the phone, you dial a number, and you're going to go live on all the speakers. So you're going to come preloaded with that. We may preload some things like emergency alerts, right? If it's kind of a district level decision, like code red lockdown kind of thing, tornado warning, whatever, fire alarm, whatever those kinds of messages are, we will have those preloaded as well. Past that, the sky's kind of the limit, right? And I'll kind of talk about what's fun to do there, but you can really kind of make it your own. So let's say that we want to create a message, and let's say I want to use a bell, right? This is going to be for my bell sound. We're going to come in here to create message, and actually let me show you real quick. The way InformaCast is going to work is you're always going to have a big blue button to make a new thing. And then when you're done configuring that new thing, there's always going to be a big blue button to save that new thing. Okay, whether it's a group or a message or a schedule or anything else we're going to talk about today, big blue button to make it, big blue button to save it. Okay, so we're going to come in here and we're going to create a message, and we're going to choose a notification profile, which is a lot simpler than it sounds. It's either going to be a default profile, or it's going to be a bell tone. This is going to be important here in a second, or it's going to be live audio, right? Those are kind of the things that we're using the system for. We're either paging, or we're doing bells as a baseline to start with, right? In this case, I want to create my first bell tone for the campus. So I'm going to come choose the profile bell tone. That's going to set some stuff on the back end that you're not going to have to worry about. I'm just going to choose it, and then I'm going to minimize that menu. Then I'm going to give it a name, right? So this may be normal bell, right? This may be normal bell tone, right? It could be anything. Then there will be a subject and a body. Why is there a subject and a body? That is because, as I mentioned, we can take some of these messages and turn them into text. Okay. For a bell tone, that won't be present. But if I were to go up here and turn this to default, then suddenly my text that I type in here will show up on all of the phones on campus. They will scroll across the speakers on campus. And that's important for using it for different things, right? If I have an emergency lockdown, I want to put some notes in here, right? I want to put, emergency lockdown here in the subject line. But here in the body, I might put things like immediately lock your class doors, turn off the lights, move to the back of the classroom, right? Things that are pretty self-explanatory since we're sitting here Tuesday morning, in a Teams meeting. But in an emergency event, when the adrenaline's pumping, it may be something that folks need to be reminded of, right? So the ability to put that in the message and broadcast it and put it on every phone is a great touch point for keeping people grounded in the moment in the event of an emergency. Um, for now, though, we're not doing any emergencies. We're just making a bell. So back to bell tone, and then we're going to choose what we're sending out. For a bell, we're obviously only going to send audio. Although you could, if you wanted to, for every bell, send a picture to the phones. I would advise against that, but your campus, do what you want. And then for emergency situations, you can have things like confirmation requests. So again, in that code red situation, here are the steps. Did you follow these steps? And then they can hit that button to say yes, and then the person who sent that emergency alert out can actually get a report back that the following classrooms have executed the emergency plan, right? Things like that. But we're keeping it super simple for our bell tone, so audio only. And then basically the way this is going to work is it's going to just continue giving you options to fill in based off of the options you choose. So when I choose audio only, it's going to come down here, and I can do a couple of cool things. I can either have a recorded audio file, or I can do text to speech. This can't be made a bell tone, but if you want to for other types of alerts, you can absolutely come in here and make it a text to speech, and it does exactly what you would think it does. We're going to stick here with recorded, and when I choose recorded, I can do one of two things. I can either upload a file, or I can record something. So I'm going to click record. Hopefully you can see this pop up. I don't know if you can or not. But the pop-up is very simple. It says start recording. And so I'm going to talk real quick. It's going to record what I'm saying. I'm going to hit stop, and it's there. It's in the system. And then I believe I shared my audio recording. And so I'm going to talk real quick. It's going to record what I'm saying. So did everybody hear that? Okay, perfect. So it does exactly what it says, right? Where is this appropriate? This is appropriate for if you want to create a bell that rings every day at 10 a.m. that just says, teachers, reminder, please take attendance, right? That's a very straightforward thing. I will also say that a lot of my campuses like to record just a really soft tone that dings every morning at 10 a.m., right? Not something so invasive as a whole voice thing, but maybe it's just a soft tone that says, oh yeah, it's a different tone than the bells. It reminds me I need to take attendance. I'm going to cancel that for now, and I'm going to go the other route, which is to upload a file. We're going to provide you with 30 or 40 different little WAV files. I'm going to choose a school. It's called School Pleasant. Let's see if it's a pleasant sound. I honestly don't know. But I'm going to click that little file. It's going to upload that file. We're going to give you a ton of them to choose from. And then let's listen to it. Hopefully, this doesn't blast anybody out on their speakers. I mean, that's not terrible. I don't know that I would have that for my bell, but you do what you want to do. Um, and so that file is now uploaded. This is actually pretty cool because if you're willing to follow the instructions in the user guide, you can compress audio files, right? Why is that important? Well, a lot of my clients do things like classical music during the entire passing period, right? A lot of my schools do fun things where the kids can win a competition to choose the passing music for a week, right? And you can swap out audio files, and the kids can listen to whatever song they chose because they won the big, I don't know, donation competition or whatever. It's very simple to do that. You just kind of come in here and you swap it in. For now, though, I'm going to leave school pleasant in here, and so we're almost completely done um, with our setup of this bell. Then finally, um, the alert tone. So if most of you are at least my age, possibly older, a little bit younger, you remember when the announcements came on, there was this ding 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 kind of thing, right? And that basically meant be quiet. It's time to listen to the announcement. And that way, you didn't have the first part of the announcement drown out while everybody's trying to quiet down to hear it. That is what this is. That is what an alert tone is. So you can choose. This is not probably for a bell schedule appropriate, but if you were to do a live announcement at your campus, you can choose one of these sounds, and it will by default play before every broadcast that you make. Right? You don't have to set that up consistently. If we attach this alert tone to your live paging, um, then from then on, whenever you take the phone off hook to do a page to the campus, it'll play that pre-tone again to give folks a chance to quiet down to listen to the announcements. That's kind of the big deal. So consider using that for your live paging and whatnot. It might also play a part in emergency alerts, right? So if emergency alerts are typically recorded voice, right? This is a code red lockdown. This is a fire emergency words, but those also completely different than a nice normal announcement pre-tone. For now, though, since this is just a bell, I'm just going to leave it at default. Okay. Um, and then you have the option to uh, dedicate where these go. And I believe that the system requires that you choose at least one group. It doesn't really have a bearing on how you use it going forward, just that this message is tied to this group. When it's a bell tone, you can still insert it in the bell schedule and define who it goes to past that. Um, and I'm gonna try to save it to make sure the system stops me and tells me that I have to put something in. But um, to recap, before I save, the only things you have to do: give the message a name. You have to give it a subject, right? This is a uh, bell tone, right? You choose what type of message it is, right? So I've done one, two, three things. You upload an audio file if you want. Choose whether or not there's a pre-tone. Four things, and then you should be able to hit save. I think it's going to make me, yep, it's going to make me choose a recipient. Um, choose whatever recipient you want. It won't matter for the purposes of how we're going to use the system. Okay. So five things, hit save, and I've created my message. Okay. Five very quick things. And now this message is usable in a bunch of different things. I'm going to create one real quick just to show how fast that can be done. This is a soft bell. That's how quick it is to create one. Okay, it took about 10-15 seconds, right? And again, once you set these up, you're probably not going to have to go back in there very often to do this, unless again you're very active with your kids and letting them kind of swap out bell tones and stuff like that. Um, for the administrators at the district level, I will note that you need to make sure if you're creating specific stuff for the campus, you really need to make sure you're in the campus. You will note that um, it says right here site access, whether it's campus specific or whether it's shared across the district. For instance, the live audio broadcast is going to be one setup and it's going to be shared across all the campuses. It's managed from a district level. The K8 Mansfield bell tones are on the K8 Mansfield level. That should make sense. So I've got a normal tone and a soft tone, and I've got my live paging broadcast. These are going to be kind of the three things that I'm really going to need to continue on with administering 95% of what this does from a day-to-day perspective. So we've created some message templates. That's block number 2. So we've got device groups, message templates, and now we're going to put them together in a couple of different ways and show you how powerful the system can be. The first way, and this is going to encompass the entirety of the bell schedule, is bell scheduling. If you go to notifications and you mouse over bell schedules and you open it up, you're going to see 4 different categories. You will interact with all 4 of these categories at some point, and we're going to kind of take it, let's take it in order. I'm glad that they've got it in this order because this is probably an appropriate order. If I click overview, you're not going to see anything because we haven't done anything yet. So I'm showing you a blank screen on purpose. That's kind of weird of me, but we'll come back to it so you can see what happens after you do some configuration. The first thing you really want to do when you set up your bell schedules is you want to go to your ring list. A ring list, in the simplest way to think about it, is on a normal day, on a specific day, when are my bells ringing and what types of bells do I want to ring? Okay. So we're going to create a normal school day ring list for this mythical campus. And again, as I mentioned, big blue button to create the new thing. It's going to take me to a new screen. You'll see the big blue button down at the bottom to save the thing I've made. So basic information, we got to give it a name. I'm going to call it normal school day ring list. Okay. This is the bell schedule for a normal day 25-26. Okay, whatever description you want. And then you're literally just going to go in order and tell the system, I want the bell to ring at 8 o'clock. I want the bell to ring at 8:30. I want the bell to ring at 10. Whatever the thing is, right? And so let's say, what time does school start? 7:45? 7:45. So let's say I want my first bell to ring at 7:45. Very simple. Come here, 7:45 in the AM, 45 in the AM, and then I come and choose my ringtone. What are those? Those are the 2 ringtones I created, right? There they are, right? So normal bell tone, soft tone, these are the 2 things I created. I will just choose it from the drop-down box, and then I will say, where do I want to send it? You're going to live here in device groups. Okay. So when I come here and click device groups, you'll see the device groups that, right? In this particular start of school, we're going to hit all the devices on campus. Okay. And now I've created my first entry. That's literally it. If you, then I'm going to go ahead and click add entry, and then I'll just put in another time, right? So if my passing period is 5 minutes and I want a like kind of warning bell 4 minutes in, I would just come in here and do that. And I would do 0749. No, not 10:30. What are you doing? 7:49. 0 seconds in the 8. Okay. Do the same thing, same set of groups, and so on and so forth throughout the day. So what I would say in terms of homework, get a piece of paper, start writing that down. This is going to be the longest amount of time you're going to spend in here is putting in this ring list. And so whatever pre-work you can do to just kind of jot out the specific times, that's what you want to go ahead and do now. And it's really going to shorten the amount of time you have to set up stuff. Um, if you want to just use the same tone to the same groups, you can actually take advantage of this feature called copy. And you can come in here and it'll copy the entire entry. And all you have to do is come in and change the time. Okay. Right. So I don't know why it does that. Right? So maybe it's 8:55, whatever. Okay. Come and put that in. One of the fun things I will note is if you're coming along and doing this, you'll notice that now my times are kind of out of whack. I've got a 7:45, I've got a 7:49, and I've got an 8:55, and they're kind of all out of order. If I hit save and then I come back into this ring list, it will go ahead and reorder it for me. Okay, in terms of time entry. So if you forget an entry, don't freak out. You don't have to do anything special. Just save and close, and then come back into it, and it'll put it all in order. Okay. Um, and then finally, I'll just say, here's my 10 a.m. Attendance reminder, right? So 10 a.m. soft tone to maybe just the west side of the building. I don't know why, because it's a demo, right? So very simple, very easy to put in, and now I have my attendance reminder to the upper school, let's say. Okay, so I'll save and close that. And you can see now that I've got 4 entries for my campus, and it's called a normal school day ring list. Okay. Well, what happens if we have early release, right? I don't know what the ILTexas schedule is. I know several of my clients have early releases on like Wednesday, for instance. So let's say we've got a different type of day that happens a lot, but it's not the normal day. We want to go ahead and create a ring list for that. So you can go ahead and hit copy and pull up everything you just did, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And come and give it a different name. Let's call it Wednesday early release, right? Maybe this is the Wednesday early release schedule. Maybe it's the end of semester short day early release schedule. Whatever. That's a pretty common. Type of bell schedule for schools. So let's go ahead and put that in, give it a name. Okay, give it a description, and then we'll come in here and we'll start to shorten all of the bells, right? Maybe this one rings at 8:15 now. I don't know, right? You understand the point. Okay. So we'll come in here, say 8:15, normal bell. Maybe attendance happens at 9 o'clock instead, right? And so now we have this different set of bells that go off at different times now for special days. Okay. So I've created 2 so that we can kind of look at how this differs when we go to the next part. But most campuses, I think, will see 2 to 4 different entries here in ring list. You'll have a normal ring list. You can absolutely, I know that a lot of groups are, if you're K-8, you've got a bunch of youngins all the way up to middle school, and you certainly are going to have different bell schedules for those groups. You can put them both together on one day and just ring different parts of the building and have one long ring list, or you can run 2 different ring lists and call one, lower school, one upper school. It really doesn't matter. You can create as many different ring lists as you want. Okay. But I would imagine most groups are going to have a normal one, a short day, a testing maybe bell schedule, where there are different parts of the building. Maybe if they're testing during the day, and those are always where we're testing, maybe those speakers get silenced during on testing days, things like that. But I would imagine you'll have between 2 and 4 different ring list entries. So we've created those ring lists. And then we've got to actually do something with them. So we're going to move on down the list here, and we're going to hit schedules. So when I hit schedules, again, there's nothing there. We'll click the big blue create new schedule button. And this is where we're going to tell the system what bells to ring on what days. Okay. So come in here to basic information, name, and call it K8 man um, bell schedule. Let's say, let's say I'm going to create two bell schedules. Let's say I'm going to create an upper school and lower school. So I'll go ahead and create upper, right? So this will be the K8 man upper bell schedule. Okay. This is the bell schedule for the upper school portion of the building. Okay. Very simple. After you give it a name, you're going to tell it when it's going to ring. Okay, where its baseline is, and this is one of the reasons why this system is so cool. You can set this up at the beginning of the school year, and it'll just run all school year, and you'll never have to jack with it again, um, except on special days, right? And then you can have the bells silence when we get into summer, and there's just staff in the building, and you don't want to have the bells ringing all day and bothering people. You can set that schedule. So for now, I'm going to set this to start today, um, and have it run until the end of school year. Let's call it May 30th. Okay, that's it. It should default to the Chicago time zone, which is our time zone. If it doesn't, just note that you're in the Chicago time zone. That's where you want to be. And then the only thing that's left on this page actually is I don't think that we're an an A day, B day type organization, but let's say you were, you could have 1 to 3 different weekly patterns, right? If you had an A week, B week kind of thing. I don't think that we are, so we're gonna stick to one week in the pattern, and this will basically just repeat
Hey,
itself every day.
Brad, the high schools are on A week, B week, and I think even some of the
Perfect.
the other schools are too. So
So
yeah.
if you're A week, B week, and it actually changes when your bells are supposed to ring, this is how you accomplish that. You literally just tell it 2 weeks in the pattern, and it'll alternate back and forth. Okay. So we'll leave it that way. And we'll say on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, normal ring list. Okay. My special Wednesday early release schedule, that I plug in on Wednesday. Really straightforward. And then Saturday and Sunday, I leave blank because I'm not interested in ringing the bell during Saturday and Sunday. Although, if you have dedicated weekend school hours, maybe you create a weekend bell schedule. Okay. And then just for fun, I will flip that for week 2, just so you see how that presents itself in the calendar here in just a second. And so for week 2, I will say do the early release schedule Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and do the normal schedule on Wednesday, right? So 2 different weeks, 2 different setups, and it'll just alternate back and forth. Okay. Um, then again, we'll talk about exceptions here in a second. But then again, we'll just hit save. And now we have our bell schedule. And that's it, right? I can come in here and I can create a second bell schedule, and I can call this K8 man lower bell schedule, right? And now this can be pointed at the lower school. If I've got different ring lists for different times for the lower school, I can come in and set this up as well. And I'll run this again till the end of the school year. Right. Let's say the lower school, as pointed out, is probably just the same week or the same schedule every week, and maybe they don't have normal release because I want to do something different to show that off. Right. So we'll just do normal ring list, and then skip Saturday and Sunday, and we'll hit save. And so now I've got, if I'm at K8 Mansfield, I've got a dedicated bell schedule for the lower school, a dedicated bell schedule for the upper school, and I can modify them each individually because they're not mixed together. I could also put this together, again, if I do more complicated ring lists, I could absolutely put these two things together. But for now, this is my school year. These are my two bell schedules, and everything I need to have working is working in these schedules. So now if I go to overview, I will see my bell schedule. Okay. And I'll see that it runs throughout the school year. If I run all the way to to May, I can see that it ends on June. I should have ended it in the middle of the month so you can see it stop. But I ran it all the way out through May, and you can see they're color coded, and I've got one group in one color and one group in another color. If I want to drill down into a day, let's say I'm interested to see, hey, we've got testing on Thursday the 14th. What does that look like? Well, if I click on that, I can see what the bell schedule does. Okay, so I'm going to have bells at 7:45, 7:49, 8:55, and 10 a.m. and so on and so forth. Right? Your bell schedule will be a lot longer than 4 entries, but yes, and that's the next section is pausing for testing, for example. But in the overview, you can see all these items, and you can kind of drill down into it. Let me see if I can see the alternating. So my purple schedule is my upper school, and you can see how it alternates. A week, B week, right? So my A week had all normal days, and then on Wednesday it had early release, and then on B weeks it had all early release, and then on Wednesday it had normal days, just to kind of show how it alternates. So you can see it alternating. And then to Mr. Rogers' question, the next thing that you're going to want to learn how to do is how to put in an exception. Okay. Um, this is important for a couple of reasons. The first is testing, to Alan's point. The second is those end of semester early release days that don't fit into a recurring schedule but need to be inserted for early release, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here to the schedule. I'm going to say, hey, my upper school, most likely to have testing, right? For instance, I'm going to come down here to exceptions, and I'm going to add an exception. It is very straightforward to do so. You just come in here and say, what is our testing? Tax? Is that a thing now? That's what we do. Do we do tax? I don't know. Star something. I know my daughter has like 50 tests a year. I feel like so. Let's say we're doing tax testing, and we want to silence the bells during the week of September 8th through 12th. Okay. Just come in here, put that entry in, say what it's for, when to start it, and then the default is silence, right? So the default exception is going to be silence, and then you're done for testing, right? Or you can sub in one of your specific schedules, right? So if you have a specific testing schedule where only part of the building is silenced, but the rest of the building keeps going, you might want to sub in that very specific schedule, right? But for our purposes, we'll just say, hey, we're doing testing on the 8th through the 12th, silence ringing. And then let's say for sake of an example, we're going to have fall first 9 weeks early release, right? So let's say on October 17th, there's an early release date because we're done with the first 9 weeks or whatever, whenever the first 9 weeks ends, right? So I'll come in here, I'll put 17, and then I'll come in here and say early release schedule. Okay, and now I have accommodated for my end of semester early release day today here in July, right? And I don't have to worry about it in October, right? I know your school schedule is already done. It was done last spring, right? You can come put this in now, and then you don't have to worry about it, right? The bell system's just going to keep up with you. So again, I'll hit save on these exceptions. And now when I go to overview, you should see, here's an exception, right? There's my testing week. I put in an exception to have no bells, and I can see that clearly in my schedule. If I go to October, I can see that early release day here on the 17th, which I put in as an exception. You see that it changes the color code, so it's very easy to see in the overview. And that's great because that means if somebody says, hey, did we put the bells at early release for this day? You can just come here to overview, go to that day, and see if it's a different color. If it's a different color, then yes, you've put in an exception. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. So if another way to handle exceptions is instead of going to the schedule and putting in an exception, you can come to the exception section and build exceptions here, right? So there's a couple of different ways to do that. If you're working with multiple bell schedules and you want an exception for all of it, right? You notice I put in the early release day in October for just the upper school. If I'd wanted to do that at the lower school too, I could put the exception in at both schedules, or I could just come here to the exception tab and put in one exception and say apply it to both schedules. Does that make sense? Right. So there's a couple different ways to do it. Okay. I'm about to move on from bell schedules. Hopefully it's simple enough. You build your bell tones one time. You create your unique ring list for somewhere between 2 and 4 different days one time, and then you can come in here and apply it to your schedule generically and add in your exceptions that are already on your calendar one time. Hopefully one time, right? And then you let the school year run and you don't have to worry about it. Okay. Okay. So that's bell schedules. The other thing that we use our combination of groups and messaging for is announcements. Okay. So we're going to turn to that and we're going to talk about what is called dialcast. Okay. So I'm going to go up here to dialcast. And dialcast is the thing that takes that makes it possible to walk up to a phone, dial an extension, and get the paging. Okay, very simple. Um, right now, until we finish the migration, you're still working with the old Valcom system. Continue to use the extensions that you were using before. Even once you get the new phones in, until your new paging and bell system is up and going, until Fusion is available at your campus, continue to interact with the Valcom units the way that you do right now. Okay. Once the new bell system is in, um, again, these will be things you will set up probably only one time, and then you'll just need to make sure administration knows what your digits are, and you can dial different digits to do different things. I have unsaved changes. Hold please. Oh yeah, I don't care. Okay. Okay. So by default, again, everybody's going to have this live paging set up because that's what we understand. That's what we understand most. That's what we understand most groups to use. Um, and so by default, you will have this. You may also have setups again for emergency alerts of specific types: code red, code yellow, fire, things like that. And we can tie each of those to different combinations of what they call dialing patterns, but you would think of it as like an extension. Okay. Um, but at every campus, that live paging is going to be whatever the campus code is. In the case of Mansfield, it's 728, right? So that's technically what everybody's extension starts with, even if you don't have to dial it when you're at that campus. And then 7700, right? So now, as a district, you know if you're an area superintendent or a tech person or just somebody traveling to another campus, now you know how to page that campus, right? You need that campus's 3 digits, which should be evident on any phone that you walk up to. It's the first 3 digits of the extension of the phone you walk up to, and then 7700. And now you're live paging to the campus. Okay. Again, it would be the same thing with things like code red. It's more important for things like code red and significant security lockdowns because we want anybody on staff to know how to initiate a lockdown for safety and security at any campus that they're at, right? And so it's going to be very formulaic. Again, it's going to be 728 if you're at Mansfield, and then some 4-digit number. Okay. But let's say you want to do something different. Let's say you want to. A good example I have is some schools like it for kids to be able to do the morning announcements, right? But maybe we want to handle that in a little different way so that we don't get sued. Um, um, that might be important. So let's talk about how we can do a different type of alert. Again, we'll click the big blue button, create a new dialing configuration, and if it's a emergency lockdown, again, you're not going to have to jack with that probably. But if it's emergency lockdown, we're going to initiate a scenario, and that's going to do a bunch of stuff, right? We can tie it into access control so it literally locks the doors and things like that. Um, but you're not going to have to mess with that. So let's say you want to create a paging thing for the kiddos to do morning announcements. We're going to send a notification. We're going to come in here, continue, and we get a very similar screen to what we've been dealing with. Um, and we just got to go through it and fill this out. So we're going to call this kids morning announcements. If 7700 is for a live audio paging, maybe we do 7701 for this special type of paging that we want to do for the kiddos. I should point out that you should have the 7700 to the 7800 block to play with at your campus, right? So that's very important. Probably write that down. You have 100 different unique extensions you can assign to different types of broadcasts. In our experience, most groups only use 5, right? 5 or less, right? But you do have 100. That's important because not only does it give you flexibility to use a bunch, but it also gives you flexibility to like hide numbers, right? So that if a kid finds out this is the paging number, so I'll just start dialing up to see what I can do. Maybe you put other broadcasts in other digits that aren't right next to it, right? Leave that up to you. Then we have a section where we can choose to have an authentication method. Okay, this is pretty cool. The system will actually challenge you for a PIN number if you dial this extension to do a thing, right? So we may or may not tie that to like a security lockdown, right? You may need to know the PIN in order to initiate a security lockdown. Seems like a good idea. That takes time, right? So the district's going to have to weigh time versus safety, right? So that if there's a PIN number, it'll be harder for a kid to trip an alert. But you would just type the PIN in here, 1234, for instance, and now there's an authentication method. So now just knowing the extension isn't going to get anything done. It's going to challenge you for a PIN, right? And you can turn that on or off. We're going to associate it with our campus. It doesn't really this doesn't really affect anything. I would make sure to choose your campus, but it doesn't really affect anything. And then use a message template. Now, I realized that I didn't create my fun message that's important. For now, I'll say normal bell tone, right? And then I'll kind of show you what I was talking about for kids' morning announcements here in a second. Then I'm just going to say who it sends to, right? Maybe this is paging just for again, I've only set up a handful of groups. Maybe this is just to page the west side of the building, okay? So now dialing 728-7701 has a PIN number that I have to put in, and it will page the west side of the building. Very simple. Again, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things all on the same page, and then I hit save. And now I've got that in, and it's done. And now all I have to do is make sure my staff knows what to dial to get what. Okay. Real quick, let me take it back over to message template and talk about a different type of message. I don't have it set up. We will set up what is called ad hoc audio. I haven't shared it out yet. Let me just talk you through what ad hoc audio means because I think it's important for a school. Live audio is very self-explanatory. You do a live audio message, you pick up the phone, your mic is live, and what you say comes out the speakers you are paging to. Very self-explanatory. Ad hoc audio is slightly different. It's like live audio, except it doesn't automatically send, right? When I do ad hoc audio, and this is where the kiddo part comes in, when I dial that extension, it'll come off like I'm paging, and I say what I want to say. It doesn't send until I hang up the phone. Okay, that allows somebody in administration to listen to the kids record the announcements, and then when they hang up the phone, it broadcasts it. And if the person in administration says, hey, we got to restart, then they can interrupt that so that we don't broadcast things that are inappropriate. So that is what I was trying to share. I don't have that template set up yet, but ad hoc audio, it's important to know the difference between those two things, because you should have the choice between one of those two types of paging. And that is really it for setting up paging, right? Like I said, you will likely have a handful of district set dialing patterns, um, primarily for live paging and then emergency alerts of different types. But the rest is going to be completely up to you and how you want to use it. Again, it's just that building block. So remember, it's the type of message we want to send, and then the different groups that we want to send it to, and then tie that to an extension, right? So if you commonly page one area of the building or another, you're going to have different numbers for that type of thing. But by and large, you're not going to have a ton of different dialing configurations any more than you're going to have a bunch of different ring lists and things like that. Okay. And that is really it. There are a lot of additional functionalities that we can enable, things like 911 notifications so that we can alert people if someone dials 911 on campus, things like that. But that's not really anything that anybody in this training needs to know how to do. You just need to know that it's possible. Again, super simple. Make the messages you know templates you want to send, create the groups you want to send to, and then combine those two things in fun, unique ways via the bell scheduling and via dialcast. And that's it. That's how you're gonna run your system. And with those 4 different sections and the combinations possible between them, you'll be able to achieve almost an unlimited, uniquely configurable situation for your campus. Okay.
Yeah, no, and thank you, Brad,
Yeah.
for that. And I want to jump in and let you guys know if there are configuration changes and things of that nature that you want to do, please just get that list to your campus tech, and they can push that up to us who can make those changes for you. We'll get in there and kind of handle that for you guys to help you guys out while you're doing that. But hopefully this training gives you a little bit of leeway to do a little bit on your own, but always you're not on your own when you're doing this. So we'll have the campus techs, all the campus techs are taking this training as well, to make sure that we can all step in and help where needed.
Sweet. So I know that this is was set up for an hour and a half. The last half hour is more in case anybody had any questions. So I will take those now. If any, I didn't see any really pop up in chat. If you've got any, throw them in or come off mic, and I'll or come off mute, and I'll be happy to answer it. But otherwise, give you back 30 minutes and let you go on about your day. Will there be templates sent to each campus? So we will make the audio files for different bell tones available to every campus. We will create some of those unique or some of those common templates across each campus, like live paging, um, uh, in terms of both messaging and dialing, emergency alerts, whatever the district decides on, and that will show up in your dashboard when you log in. Nothing really has to get sent to anybody. Bell ring lists, bell schedules, those are pretty unique by campus, and so there are things that you would probably be setting up yourself.
Yeah, and campus techs, that's where we'll need to kind of provide some assistance to help set up the initial bell, and that'll be the biggest part, is setting up the initial bell list. So we want to be able to assist in that regard as we can to get them all going.
So I just want to remind that I did ask last week for all campus techs to get me a copy of your current basic bell schedule so that can be in place the day of. I believe I asked for it by end of this week. So if we can move that to a forward priority, we will have everything seamless and ready.
Claudia asked, will the default message, I assume you mean the default live paging message, will it come with basically the pre-tone to when it hits the classrooms? We can, if that's what the district would like. If not, it's pretty straightforward to make that change for yourself. You'll come in here to messages, you'll go to live audio, you can hit copy, and you can make your own campus setup.
Sorry, let me clarify the question.
Oh, sure.
So on the message templates, you said that we could create notifications profile, or we can go on the only on the default. And so on our phones, on the students, whenever we send on the messages, when we put it on the body part right there, that the
Mhm.
messages will be received at the classrooms. Now, whenever they receive those messages, is it gonna make a noise when they receive those messages
So
on
if
their
you're
phones?
broadcasting to a phone, the phone will come off hook like it's a speakerphone and broadcast. The classrooms will also have a speaker in the classroom from a paging perspective, but yeah, the phones will also broadcast if you're paging to the phones. Does that
So
make sense?
anything that we put on the body, they're gonna receive and it's gonna pretty much say the message, or it's gonna come out on their screen.
Oh no, this is text and it'll show up on the screen, on the phone screen. Sorry.
Right. And so
So
will it make a noise whenever they receive that? Like
if
a
you're
ding or
just
something?
if it's tied to live paging, the phone will be having the live audio. If you do a text only, you can decide, right?
Okay. Thank you.
If you do text only and you don't upload a file and you don't set an alert tone, no, it'll post a silent message. You can just do text and set the alert tone, and then it will just do a ding, to your point.
Right. Thinking just about safety reasons.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, right? So
Thank you.
if you're doing those types of follow-ups to emergency alerts, you can absolutely set it so that it's completely silent. You can set it with a tiny tone. You can do any of that stuff. It's highly configurable.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. At the tech level, what are we allowed to per district? I'm not sure.
Passed up through, I believe, administration, which will pass up to the superintendents, or what they're allowed to make on paging, correct, Alan? Because it's not
Yeah.
a IT directive.
Right. I need a little bit more clarification on that, Norman. Are you asking what you're allowed to do and set up? We're kind of allowing that to be kind of principal driven or AP driven, how they want to set it up and use it. There will be certain things that will be the norm that we'll have on there. But you will have the ability to go in. Oh, they probably want to know what permissions they'll have as a tech to go in and make changes. Is that what you're asking, Norman? And you guys should have full ability to go in and make changes
Yeah,
and
most
to assist the
anybody who's
regular.
in this training will have this level of administrative access.
Yeah.
Right. That importantly, Norman, I think it may be an additional answer. If there's a type of message that is listed as shared, it is only addressable at the district level. Okay. If it is specific to the site, it means it's something the site uniquely wanted, and so it is addressable at the site level.
Good.
Okay. And that goes for schedules, message types, dial cast for emergency alerts. If it's created at the district level, it will not be editable at the site level. And then that's important for things like risk management and insurance and safety and stuff like that. Whatever the district decides on those things can't be edited by the campus. Okay.
Looks like that might be it.
If there aren't any other questions, we get 25 minutes back. If you're up for going through this again, I'll be here on Thursday doing the exact same thing. If not, my feelings are not hurt. Thank you so much for sitting through this. We're looking forward to putting this in for y'all, and I think you're really gonna love it. But if you have any questions, please let your team know. They'll bubble it up, and we'll get you answers. Okay.
Yep. Another training coming up, and this will be recorded and shared out to everybody. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.